That is the problem. You lack imagination, Minister, when it comes to producing results.
Hey, what's going on, all my fellow godlies and Warframe enthusiasts around the world? I'm Vance from the ever-popular web series of Warframe God Builds. And in today's episode of ReForged, I'm going to be focusing on Vauban, really just because I've needed to do it for a long time. Like, I've really needed to cover him since Thanksgiving of last year. Because I featured him in a top 10 countdown, and I showed him using Torrid. I've since then gone back to Sonicor like I showcased in the initial God build for Vauban, and then I went back to Torrid, and then I went to Comb, and then I went to Supra, and now I'm back to Sonicor. It's ridiculous. I can't, like, up until now I wasn't really sold on what I wanted to do with Vauban, and until the last Void Trader, I just decided it was time to cover him again. Really quickly, getting into his build, I don't think anything's changed here. None of the setup is different other than the usage of the Prime mods, and the Prime mods just weren't available with the initial God builds, but then again, you already knew that. So, also this is Vauban Prime, so if you're still using a normal Vauban, you're gonna have to use more Forma than what I did. But it's not unbearable. You know, it's a 2 Forma setup. It may end up being 3, maximum amount 4 for a normal Vauban. So this is pretty reasonable. I'm always going with range on Vauban. I feel like that is the most important thing to have on him because it helps with Bastille and Vortex, which is the 2 powers that you're going to focus on the most because they have the most CC potential and they have the most in-game endurance potential. I can't really recommend anything else. I can't really recommend any other type of build because you want to have that range. That range is incredibly effective when CCing enemies and keeping you alive, especially with repelling Bastille. Now, in terms of primary weapons, like I've said, I'm using Sonicor. The only difference is back then I didn't have a Riven, and now I've got one. I should probably re-roll this because it's only giving me +2 benefits, but they're really good benefits, and they work. They do what they're intended to do with a build that's reasonably set up with around 6 Forma. I could pump more into it, but I just rather keep it simple because I'm not focusing on damage with this. As crazy as that sounds, I'm not focusing on killing enemies with this. I just want to hurt them enough for my primary method to work. So, that being said, I'm going to also recommend different weapons in case you don't like Sonicor and you prefer something else like Supra. The Supra Vandal was just recently released with this last event, and it's incredible. I'm looking for a Riven mod to complete this setup so I can, you know, maybe sacrifice something here. I have no idea what I would sacrifice. They're all really good mods, all completing this build, but I love using Supra for the entropy burst. Not really for the status chance, because that's kind of garbage, but the plus entropy gives you your energy back, so as long as you're wielding this and you get the affinity for it, you'll get your energy return. And I can't recall whether or not the Cephalon syndicates yield magnetic or radiation damage whenever that entropy goes off, but it's still a good help for your primary weapon, especially when doing damage and trying to weaken anything while you're using your Vortex. Torrid is also using a Riven mod now, but I'm primarily using Torrid on Nidus because I feel it meshes well with his 2 a little bit better. I like this Riven. It does plus damage, plus status chance, and plus magazine capacity. 3 positives that you just can't argue with. I'm really lucky to have gotten this the way that it was, completely out of the gate. I would be using this on Vauban as I showed in the top 10 countdown, but it just seems to not be doing the damage that it used to be doing. I don't know if it's a matter of Digital Extremes nerfing the weapon itself or buffing the enemies and how much they can take, but it just doesn't seem to be doing the damage that it used to be doing in the top 10 countdown, so I'm going to leave it at that and let you decide which primary you want to roll with. I'm just showcasing the build so that you have a good foundation to start with when you start considering what weapons you want to use. Prisma Grakata is probably one of the most underrated weapons in the game. This thing is capable of annihilating level 140 heavies. These are heavily armored enemies, and this thing can utterly destroy them. However, I will say that if you're going to run with a setup like what I've got here, then you're absolutely going to need Carrier Prime with the whole ammo mutation thing. You're probably going to need to sacrifice this Riven for a prime rifle ammo mutation because it just pisses through ammo so quickly. Other valuable candidates for this type of setup is Comb. I've showcased Comb with the Excalibur God build and also the Mirage God build, but I always end up going back to this because it's just so damn reliable, and it's so good at hurting enemies inside that Vortex. It's unbelievable. I mean, it's just a really good weapon regardless of who you're using it on. It's just a fucking phenomenal weapon. Now I'm gonna skip to the Helios Prime because as I mentioned that you're gonna need to use the carrier if you want to use Prisma Grakata. These mods are all required for this build. I mean, to make Helios perform the way that it's intended to perform, you're going to need Investigator, Animal Instinct, Metal Fiber, Sanctuary, Detect Vulnerability, Vacuum, Meta Ray, Enhanced Vitality, Calculated Redirection, and Prime Regen. These are all pretty critical mods in making it tanky and making it do its job, especially with Detect Vulnerability. Investigator is going to scan things, which is always good to add to your codex, but Detect Vulnerability is going to add areas of crit, vulnerability points in which if you hit them, you're going to do additional damage. And that's amazing considering the fact that everything that I've recommended thus far and everything I will recommend is capable of doing AoE damage, which will in turn hit the vulnerable points and you will capitalize on additional damage. I'm using Helios Prime, which is something that I didn't use for an initial God build because it wasn't available. So I've upgraded to Helios Prime, and I would suggest that you do the same. Also, I'm using Sweeper Prime primarily because with rifles on my Warframe, I will use shotguns on my Sentinel. And with shotguns on my Warframe, I will use rifle mods. Now, the reason why I do that is because you can't use the same mods while you're using rifle. So, for instance, if you have a maxed out Serration on your Volclock, then you can't use a maxed out Serration on your Soma Prime, which is irritating, which is why I use shotguns on my Sentinels whenever I'm using rifles on my Warframe, and rifles on my Sentinels whenever I'm using shotguns on my Warframe. So, I also have Rivens for both the Sweeper Prime and the Volclock at this point. And I think I'll just go ahead and show you the Volclock build as well. I'm probably one of the only people you will ever encounter that go full all out on my Sentinels and the weapons for them, especially considering the fact that Sentinels just don't shine as much as what Companions do now. You know, given the fact that like once Sentinels die, that's pretty much it. They're gone, unless you have a Prime Regen, but even then, they only have a set amount of lives before they're gone for good, and it sucks. They really need to add a Sentinel repair kit into the gear. That way you can revive your Sentinel. There's just no excuse for that. So before I get into the bread and butter behind this setup, I wanted to quickly go over Sonicor and why I'm using it and why I'm recommending it. I chose to run with Sonicor primarily for CC. And then you're probably going to be wondering, why am I using a CC weapon on a CC Warframe? Well, here's the thing. In the amount of time that it takes you to throw down your Vortex or your Bastille, you're going to cast the ability which throws it out. Then it has to arrive at the destination you threw it to. Then it has to activate. In that amount of time, you can be killed by a nullifier shot, a stray bombard rocket, anything. There's a lot of things that can kill you in precious milliseconds. So Sonicor really gives you the ability to get the jump on them before they get the jump on you. If you see them, you fire a shot and panic, and it usually instantly CCs them. It shoots them into the sky, to be precise. Now, in most cases, when your bombards or your heavies or whatever is not getting shot into the sky, it's because there's most likely a ancient healer that is absorbing the damage for them, and in which case you want to concentrate fire on the ancient and then launch their pathetic asses into the sky, because that's going to yield the most success, especially when you're going from point A to point B. That is what I use this Sonicor for, is to get me from point A to point B. I want to remain safe and not get downed on my way to the objective to do what it is I do best. So on to what I do best. The Prisma Obex. Yet again, another weapon that you're gonna scratch your head and wonder why I'm using, because it doesn't do a lot of damage. Well, I've seen this build be just shunned for not being worth it. I've seen critics say that entropy detonation is just not at all worth it. And on the flip side, I've also seen people try to make use of this with like a paralysis Valkyrie. And, you know, kudos to Valkyrie players, but she lacks what it takes to hold enemies in one spot and capitalize on the full potential of entropy detonation. Now, dare I say that Nidus can pull off this synergy a whole lot better than Vauban, but it's a Vauban ReForged, and Vortex still has its usefulness. It still does quite a bit of damage, and one thing that I love about the entropy detonation is the fact that you can, even if you don't manage to kill them with the finishing blow, you can still manage to do more than one ground attack. So if your one ground attack doesn't set off this entropy detonation and nuke everything inside your vortex, don't worry, you can do your ground finisher more than once because there's more than one enemy stuck in your vortex. Therefore, you get to do multiple tries. And in the event that you don't kill your enemies, we still have healing return present, and that's going to status proc them with the 78% status chance. And when you hit enemies that are procced with status, you're also going to return plus 11 health. And people think that that's not a big number, and they're right, it's not. But when you start using it on weapons that have a high attack rate, then you're going to be getting your health back, and you're going to be getting it back pretty damn quickly. And then there's the crowd of people that argue, oh, well, Life Strike will grant you all your health back all at once. It's much more efficient. True, but Life Strike requires that your melee also be equipped and that you channel so that you waste your energy. Healing Return doesn't involve any of that. You can have your primary equipped and capitalize on a quick attack, and it's just magical because it will keep returning health to you as long as they're affected by status. And as I discussed before, when you have something that hits at a higher rate of fire, then you're going to be getting your health back almost as quickly, almost as efficiently. Especially with Vauban, considering the fact that he can instant CC pretty much anybody. All you got to really do is throw out a Bastille and start waylaying on a fool. Especially considering the fact that Obex has low damage rate as it is, you can just essentially keep punching them in the nuts until you get your full health, which you can't argue with that. Then on top of that, you throw down Vortex, so everything inside the Bastille gets pulled in. You capitalize on your finishing touch. Keep in mind that you're only using your primary to weaken your enemies. That way you can kill them with the finishing blow, therefore proccing entropy detonation and making everything get nuked to hell. I kid you not, I have seen this thing work. Let's explain this for a second here. Lethal ground attacks cause enemies to explode, dealing plus 1,000 damage. On top of that, you have the plus 20% enemy max health, which has potential to scale. Blast damage in a 10-meter radius. So that's CC on top of your CC. Plus entropy if you have your melee equipped. Folks, there's no getting around how potentially great this setup is. When used in conjunction with Vortex and you weaken your enemies with your primary weapons, you can nuke effectively everything that's in your Vortex or within 10-meter radius of it. There's no getting around it. I've seen people try to sell this for something under what it's worth, trying to say that it's just not worth it. And to anybody who believes that way, just keep in mind that if you have that belief, you're probably using it wrong to begin with. So in conclusion, not only is Vauban good at CC, but he's pretty damn good at DPS. Especially if you use him right. And if you liked this video and you learned something from it, it always helps if you smash that like button. Share, comment, subscribe, do everything I always encourage you to do. But I'm going to encourage you to do one more thing. Now, you probably didn't see it because it's not getting a lot of views. It's only in the hundreds when it should be in the thousands. But I did a speed paint for Vauban, and it was an official concept art piece for the Exidium universe, because my Vauban represents an Exidium character known as Ta. And I want to start doing a web series in which I do speed paints and I do a small bio that doesn't spoil anything with the Exidium storyline. You know, something that gives you an insight into what that character is and what they're about. And I did the speed paint, which I'm disappointed that it's not getting the views that it should be getting. I'm really disgusted with YouTube in the way that people would rather watch a video where some dumb retard overreacts for 15 minutes about getting a rare CSGO skin, rather than, you know, like an indie development team creating a Flash game with like a 2-man team and it has ambition. Like the things that get attention on YouTube are really sad. I don't feel like priorities are where they should be, and I hope to make this speed paint series as entertaining and fun to watch as possible by cramming in Exidium information, by, you know, hopefully throwing in a song that I like and also you can enjoy as well. I really want to start a series that's just as successful as the ReForged without having to rely on Warframe to do so. So it would really, really benefit me and probably yourself if you were to go and check out the speed paint videos. The link to that is going to be provided at the end of this video. But I'm going to be starting up that series, and it's something that I needed to do anyways, because there's a lot of concept art that I still need to tackle for the Exidium universe, and I might as well just upload it as speed paints to YouTube for everyone else to enjoy. So again, if you like this video, it always helps us see you smash that like button. And until next time, this has been Vance signing off. Peace.